AKA Powders, welcome back to the show of shows, to the 31 Days of Dread. I hope you like horror. I hope you like cartoons. I hope you like animation, because today we're discussing Monster House. This is from one of the great Hollywood failures of all time. Now, this movie, I love it, but the studio and the front guy, Robert Zemeckis, he's the dude behind Back to the Future, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Forrest Gump. There's a bigger story behind the movie. We're going to discuss it all. We're going to get into it. It's the 31 Days of Dread. It's the weekend. This is where we do animation and cartoons on the weekend, because you know why? We just like it. We like waking up, watching, and talking cartoons. So let's go. It's October, and it's time for the 31 Days of Dread. This is where you get one horror movie a day for the entire month of October. That's how much we love horror. That's how much we love Halloween on the Film Buff Podcast. And here's the crazy thing. This is the longest running horror event in all of podcasting. So get ready. We're going to rock and roll. We're going to scare our socks off. And yes, we're going to be grabbing some candy, maybe some cereal. Let's go. It's tough, aka Powders. This is a tough one to discuss. Now, little caveat here. Monster House has been on the 31 Days of Dread for a long time. I want to say maybe 4 years. And every single year, I want to do it. I want to talk about it. I want to bring this movie to you guys. So, I watch it and don't get to record. The AKAPAD army doesn't meet the demand of Monster House. So this movie, this cartoon has somewhat become, this animated feature has become an annual tradition in my household. I believe Monster House might be the most underrated animated movie we have today. 2006. Directed by Gil Keenan, good old Gil. Produced by ImageMovers Digital. I'm sorry. Now, ImageMovers is Robert Zemeckis' production company. They've done a lot of good movies. They go digital with a movie called Beowulf. And Beowulf is like a modern day retelling of Beowulf. Now, by modern day, I just mean there's nudity, there's violence. They streamlined the poem. They made something of the poem. But it's got Angelina Jolie as digital nakedness. That's what I mean by modern day. It's still a period piece, but it's got like a modern day sensibility. That's what I was trying to get to. They do Jim Carrey. We did this a few years ago. The Christmas Carol that these guys did, it's incredible. It's one of the best Christmas carols ever. This movie comes out, and then they do Mars Meets Moms, or Mars Needs Moms. And from that point on, the studio was done. So, short-lived. But it's Mars Needs Moms. But what we get is, we get this really big swing by Robert Zemeckis, who, if you guys need to know some of the Hollywood lore, Robert Zemeckis, the apprentice of Steven Spielberg, who, in my view, at one time, truly surpassed Steven Spielberg. Everything that we see with ImageMovers, the films, the animation branch, we do, and it has a deal with DreamWorks, but we want to connect it a little bit to Robert Zemeckis doing his own thing, doing his own production company, to Spielberg and the DreamWorks, and him going into DreamWorks and that production company. That's a big back and forth. DreamWorks had a whole lot of help, and there's way more documentation on DreamWorks than we have for ImageMovers. But with all of that said, let's get into what Monster House is. Monster House is one of the best horror-based animated movies. It's up there, in my opinion, with Nightmare Before Christmas. Now, Nightmare Before Christmas is so far ahead of this, though. It's not a two-headed dragon. We talk about two-headed dragons a lot. This is not a close scenario. But the ending of this movie, if we ever seen Dragonheart, if we ever seen an ending where a soul gets released, right? This is a Hollywood trope. This movie, I believe, has the absolute best one. It's joyful, it's sad, everything comes together. And then we have a Scooby-Doo. We have kids running around trying to solve a mystery as the whole setup. ImageMovers took form in Hollywood for motion capture. A lot of the performances in this, a lot of what we saw in Jim Carrey's Christmas Carol, a lot of what we saw in Mars Needs Moms, which we will do, by the way. We will do that here. The motion capture is there. And they even said this when Beowulf dropped. The faces, the expressions, they call it dead eye, but the eyes aren't quite there. And then what do? Because you can take the technology, you take the production to a point. How James Cameron handled Avatar and got Avatar made. It's artful. Because that was in production for so long. But you see Digital Domain, that's James Cameron's front, or Lightning Entertainment. I think it's Digital Domain, James Cameron. What we see, though, we see that James Cameron is able to elongate this production process to nail the effects. Robert Zemeckis and ImageMovers Digital didn't quite get there, and we want to say, if the previous films, if Beowulf truly popped, if Christmas Carol truly popped, if the Polar Express, right? And Polar Express has now become a seminal Christmas movie. But if these movies popped, and when I mean popped, I mean there's such a windfall of money that our production process can maybe get an extra year. Our development process can get an extra year. We go from 2-year releases to 3-year releases, maybe even 4-year releases. If that had happened, ImageMovers would still be with us today. ImageMovers Digital. Now, as a special effects company, they're still in the mix. They're still kicking butt. As a development company, I believe they have a deal with Universal DreamWorks. But along the way, through a little bit of this tragedy, a little bit of this Hollywood lesson, we get Monster House. And Monster House is as good as an annual Halloween watch as the Polar Express is for Christmas. I debated doing Polar Express just every single year for this podcast, for Cinemas. Maybe. Maybe. But no, AKAPADers. This is such a great movie. I love the kids in this movie. I just love that they're kind of, they're perfectly troped. And a little bit of that Pixar effect where they're just living, they're there on screen. I don't feel like I'm watching animation all the time because they are kind of, again, perfectly troped. They're goofy. There's a slow one. There's a smart girl. There's the aggressive youth that looks towards the good and everything. All of that. But I encourage all of you, go check this movie out. This Monster House deserves attention. The context of the production, it being a Halloween movie, it all fits. There's a lot to learn, and I think there's a lot to appreciate about this feature that I don't see a lot of today. But Monster House is legit, Fully recommended. AKAPAD. Let's go. AKAPADers, thank you for joining me for another episode of the 31 Days of Dread. We have been dedicated to horror for a long time on this feed, on this podcast. If you guys want to know more about everything we do here, go to akapad.com. From there, you can navigate to the 31 Days of Dread. We have a dedicated landing page that goes through all the years of the 31 Days of Dread, and we also have a directory that jumps you to any movie that we've done. So you can just look up the movie by name, you can go to the directory, it's all alphabetical, and you can just explore. And that's the intent, and that's why we're so into the 31 Days of Dread, because no one's done this. No one has put this much time, this much thought and effort into American horror and international horror, and we love it. Horror is the future of American cinema. Horror right now is holding up American cinema, and I'm so thankful for it. So I'm hoping that you can extend yourself, explore, and continue the conversation. akapad.com. Thanks, guys.